Welcome to a new series of videos I call Facing History. Now over the next few weeks I'll be bringing you some extraordinary tales which range from the sublime to the ridiculous. Characters you may not have heard of, but all with a fascinating story to tell. Now if you're new to the channel, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe, and then when you've watched it, leave a comment below. I'm always curious to read your thoughts. So without further ado, let's get right into this week's episode, Very Strange Case of Cromwell's Skull. On the 28th of January 1661, Oliver Cromwell went to the pub, a curious outing for two reasons. First, the puritanical Lord Protector was famously no fan of alehouses or merriment. Secondly, was dead. Now Cromwell had shuffled off this mortal coil in 1658, succumbing to a bastard tertian ague, a disease named so dramatic it sounds like a Viking curse. Yet here he was, making a brief appearance at the Red Lion Inn in London, having been exhumed on the orders of the newly restored Charles II. Cromwell's pub visit was a pit stop en route to Tyburn, where his corpse was ritually hanged and tossed into a pit, a symbolic reckoning for his role in executing Charles I. His head, however, embarked on its strange journey. Embalmed and mounted on a spike, it became a macabre tourist attraction, grimly grinning over London for decades. When Oliver Cromwell died in 1658, the nation was plunged into a precarious position. Despite leading the charge to overthrow the monarchy, alongside rejecting the crown when it was offered to him, and he famously declared, "I am not convinced of the necessity of that thing that hath been so often insisted upon by you, to wit, the title of king." Cromwell had essentially become a king in all but name, and his funeral alone proved as much. The affair was drenched in regal pomp, with an effigy of Cromwell draped in velvet and gold, a carriage drawn by 6 feather-plumed horses, and a procession so grand and ploddingly ceremonial it took 7 hours to cover just over a mile. The title of Lord Protector passed to his son Richard Cromwell in a handover suspiciously reminiscent of royal succession, but unlike his father, Old Ironsides, Richard didn't inspire confidence. His unflattering nickname, Tumbledown Dick, says it all. The shaky faux monarchy collapsed under the weight of its flimsiness, throwing the country into chaos. And before long, the fractured republic invited Charles II, son of the executed Charles I, to return from exile and restore the monarchy. So, no hard feelings, right? Wrong. Charles II and his royalist supporters harboured plenty of hard feelings toward the regicides responsible for his father's death. As Oliver Cromwell was already 6 feet under, the royalists settled for a posthumous reckoning. Now in 1661 his body was exhumed, ritually executed in public, and his embalmed head was spiked above Westminster Hall as a gruesome warning. But this was just the start of the head's bizarre afterlife. According to legend, a storm in the late 1680s dislodged the head, which tumbled to the ground, where a quick-thinking guard snatched it and stashed it under his coat. Supposedly the guard hid the relic in his chimney, but what followed was even stranger. By the early 18th century, the head re-emerged in the possession of Claudius de Pie, a French-Swiss collector of oddities. His museum, described by contemporary Zacharias Conrad von Uffenberg, was the work of an extremely strange creature that boasted curiosities like a snakeskin 16 feet long and a religious idol with an ass's head, and now Cromwell's grim relic, with de Pie confidently claiming it was worth 60 guineas. By the late 18th century, Oliver Cromwell's beleaguered head had somehow found its way into the hands of Simon Russell, a man described as an indifferent comic actor of dissolute habits and very needy. Russell treated the head with all the reverence of a prop, reportedly enjoying its shock value at parties where he'd pass it around for laughs. Eventually, it was sold to a goldsmith named James Cox, who offloaded it to 3 entrepreneurial brothers, hoping to cash in on Cromwell's infamy. They had a big idea, well, a public exhibition really, in London's Bond Street, but unfortunately the British public wasn't clamouring to pay for a glimpse of a desiccated Puritan skull. The venture went bust, and the three brothers suffered a darker fate, each reportedly meeting an untimely death. This eerie coincidence sparked whispers of a curse, but it's probably more bad luck than, say, staring into the eyes of Tutankhamun. Now, the head's next owner was a surgeon, Josiah Henry Wilkinson, who proudly displayed it to his guests. One unnerved visitor described its mummy-like parchment yellow skin and a beard that was still in excellent condition. At the same time, skeptics like Thomas Carlyle dismissed it as fraudulent moonshine. The head's embalmed state and history of being spiked on a pike aligned with Cromwell's posthumous fate. Yet comparisons to Cromwell's death mask even revealed matching facial features. The Wilkinson family held on to the relic until the mid-20th century, finally laying it to rest in 1960 at Sydney Sussex College in Cambridge, Cromwell's old school. The burial was a secret affair. Its exact timing and location remain unknown, except that it lies on the college grounds. So after centuries of indignities, Cromwell's head finally found peace, hidden in plain sight where he once studied centuries before. And so this concludes the strange tale of Oliver Cromwell, Lord Protector, regicide, reluctant monarch who managed to lose his own after a king's head in a series of bizarre and increasingly undignified escapades. From a spike above Westminster Hall to a party trick, a failed exhibit, morbid family heirloom, Cromwell's long-suffering noggin became a posthumous celebrity in its own right. And finally, centuries after his turbulent reign, the man who reshaped a nation's destiny was laid to rest, his head buried in quiet obscurity. A fittingly ironic end for a life so loudly controversial.